Welcome back to Operator Syndrome. I'm Patrick here with Steve. When we left off, I had just graduated Ranger School and spared the listeners 100 hours of Ranger School stories. So you're welcome. But now let's get back. Let's get back into the Navy and let's hear what it was like. So you had graduated Buds, and at your time, the next stop after Buds was
Fort Benning, Georgia. We, yeah, but we already knew what SEAL team we were going to report to. We were given those orders at Buds. As a matter of fact, that was a great day, and I'll have a little story about that. So, I fell in love with San Diego, as many people do, which is why it's one of the most expensive places to live in the world. um Beautiful weather, and I would always text pictures of my dad on the beach in February going, "Hey dad, it's a beautiful day here." He's back in Kentucky. Yeah, just lovely place. And I just wanted to be stationed there, honestly, for the weather. I mean, call me what you want. um but why not? Because and there was always this, we talked about this East Coast West Coast thing. you know, I don't know. I didn't, maybe we probably were a little more laid back. We were probably a little more, you know, joking around, just kind of, I don't know, just a little more relaxed. The guys in the East Coast, when I rubbed shoulders with them, tended to be a little more serious, a little more pissed off, a little more, I don't know. And I don't even know if that still goes on, but back then that was the deal. So and I mentioned this in a previous episode, before I went to Buds, or when I was waiting to class up in Buds, we were waiting for a class to form. So they're going to do something with you. So we got these crap details at SEAL Team 5. So I reported into SEAL Team 5 every day to the master at arms, who was like I don't know, they just organized all the what's going to happen that day, like cleaning the heads, sweeping the sidewalks, whatever it needed to be done. And we would, and then, but they let us PT. They would actually let us, sometimes we would have the honor of having an actual SEAL go, "Hey, you guys want to go on a run with us," or something like that. So I kind of fell in love with SEAL Team 5. I mean, it was the first kind of dose of this dream world that I had always wanted to encounter. So the Master Chief there was really cool. Master Chief Scarborough, it was his name. Now, honestly don't know if he's still alive. So many guys are, I mean, this is back in the late 80s, and he was a Vietnam era SEAL. Master Chief. You couldn't know a better guy. Just big heart, tough as nails. I mean, he's seen it all, done it all, that kind of stuff. One of my heroes, of course. And he called us. We were getting ready to leave Team 5 to go to Buds. Our class was getting ready. It was going to start. And he called us in his office and he said, "Hey guys, in the unlikely event that you make it through this training, come back and see me if you want to work at Team 5, and I'll pull some strings." And I was like, hot dang, I'm doing it. And so lo and behold, like I got a special chit. A chit, for those civilian listeners, is a piece of paper that you have to fill out just to go practically take a pee. You've got to have an official form for everything. So I had to get an official piece of paper signed that said I could walk over to SEAL Team 5 from Buds. And I had already made it. It was like our out processing week. So we were done. And I remember I was kind of nervous, and here I am on the quarterdeck, and I'm not yet a qualified SEAL, which I'll get into. I had just graduated Buds. That doesn't mean anything yet. I mean, well, it means something, but so there he was, Master Chief Scarborough. And I said, "Remember me?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "Well, I'd really like to come back to Team 5. And he goes, "I'll see what I can do. You're good." He liked me. I'll just put it that way. I don't know. So they're calling out orders the day they're calling out orders to what team you're going to go to. And it's like, everybody's kind of, where am I going to go?
Right.
And Dan Gearhart, I don't know if he's out there. If you're out there, Dan, remember this day? He was at Team 5 too, and he wanted to go back to Team 5. and his father was a Vietnam era SEAL who was at 5. So there was this kind of brand loyalty kind of thing.
Right.
And he went with me. I think he went with me or separately, I can't remember, to talk to Scarborough to see if he could get back to 5. So the day they're calling out these orders, and I mean, there weren't that many of us. I think there were probably about 28 total, but that includes people who were rolled. There were about 19 originals and a handful of people who had been rolled on different levels. And they went down the list. Petty Officer so-and-so, SEAL Team 2, Petty Officer so-and-so, SEAL Team 4. These are East Coast teams, because remember, even numbered teams are on the East Coast, odd are on the West. And boom, boom, 2, 4, 2, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2. Watkins, SEAL Team 5. Everybody was like, huh? And then Gearhart, SEAL Team 5. We were like, holy cow, it really worked. So that was so exciting, because I just wanted to come back to San Diego, honestly,
Right.
selfishly. So so we got our orders, and then we headed to Benning. Oh man, that's some funny stories. And Benning is basic airborne school. I think that's what it's called officially. I've still got my certificate, man, in my file. I love
I
that
got my
thing.
certificate. Of course.
Yeah.
How else are you going to prove to people that you're elite without
That's
that
right.
basic airborne course certificate?
So if you go in, young men, to the military, keep those certificates. One of them came in handy recently when I was applying for disability from the VA, from jacking my back up from jumping all the time. Anyway, so we all loaded up in 2 cars, like, drove across country from San Diego to Fort Benning, which is quite a drive. And that was quite a wild ride. We stopped in Fort Smith, Arkansas. One of the guys, Larkin, what was his first name? I don't know, Larkin. He was my swim buddy. He had this really cool house, and his parents were pretty well off. He had a in-ground swimming pool, and we just partied at his house on a stop, and got to stay and crash at his house on our way to Benning. Drove on through, and I just got to say, we were so cocky. It's embarrassing to look back on it, but here is a truism of the world that I come back to many times. A male of the species between the ages, a red-blooded male of our species between the ages of 14 and 20 is probably the stupidest creature on planet Earth.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, so, we are just young and stupid and full of bad ideas. And we had just graduated buds, which, made our heads swell to the size of Montana. And so here we are, and we pull into Benning. We're like, we're gonna, why do you have to even do this? Why can't you just wave it and we go do our jumps and just go home? But no, you have to go. It's a military school. It's a legit school, and you've got all kinds of people at jump school. That's what's crazy. So you've got Rangers there for sure, or associated with the Rangers on whatever level they're there. You've got tons of infantry guys, like 82nd guys. That's probably the largest chunk of the class, I would think.
Right. It would be probably like fresh out of infantry, or really anybody fresh out of boot camp, and then going to an airborne unit, most likely the 82nd, and since it's the largest airborne unit
Yeah.
in the world, I think.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of those fresh out of basic training.
And then you get other people like good deal school. Like, so you get some officers, you get some people who are just like way outside the box. Like, I remember this one girl, she was in my stick or chalk or whatever they called it. And she's about 5'1", and she's a college student in ROTC. And somehow she got orders there. And I'm like, what are you doing here? I think I ended up going out on some dates with her, but it was like, I was like, it was like such a hodgepodge of different people. And then there was us. There might have been some Force Recon Marines, 1 or 2 floating around, but anyway, and there was our class, and we're now tightly bonded. And so first of all, the PT at basic airborne school is woefully lacking compared to what we just come from. I mean, they ran so slow. We call it the airborne shuffle, where your knees actually hurt worse from running that slow. And we would give them hell all the time. We're like, this is just ridiculous. And we let it be known that we also, after any time we had off, we went out on monster PTs, because we had going back to the SEAL teams, and
Right.
then it was game on. And, one of our instructors in Bud said, because we were whining and our arms are burned out in the push-up position for 20 hours, and he's like, what are you guys whining about? You think this is hard? He goes, he said, they call it basic for a reason. These are basic kicks in the nuts. Wait till you get to a SEAL team. Those are advanced kicks in the nuts. And boy, wasn't he was right. And there's a logic to it, because you got to go through all that selection, because man, we did some ops that were so freaking hard. I didn't even think I was going to survive it, but it was that fire in the gut that you learn not to quit, and you're just like, well, quitting isn't an option,
Right.
clearly. And I don't know how we would have gotten the drive any other way. So anyway, so we get there, and it's just and we're given the black hats. I don't know what their official title was, but those are the instructors at airborne school, right?
Right. Yeah. The
Well,
black hats. That's what you call them.
what did they
Or
wear? Black baseball looking caps,
they
or
wear
didn't
a
they?
black baseball cap, but you would tell me if this is a blast from the past. I think officially they're called Sergeant Airborne, right?
Sergeant
That's how
Airborne.
you'd refer to them. Yes,
Clear
Sergeant
Sergeant
Airborne.
Airborne.
Right. All that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I had forgotten about that one. Nuggets just come one after the other. But anyway, these black hats. So they're trying to make it hard kind of for us, and we're laughing. I mean, we would do stuff to get dropped down, but that's the whole group's getting dropped down. And that doesn't make a lot of people happy that don't want to get dropped down. We want
Mm-hmm.
to, because we're not getting enough PT. So guys are all the time popping off, saying the funniest stuff. We're like, drop down. We're like, yeah, finally get some PT around here. And I mean, people are looking at us like, what kind of freaks are you guys? We're just
Mm-hmm.
like, when we're riding, and it feels good. It's like you said, when we went to Sodic, me and Bruce, it was like, yeah, we're different. We're special.
Mm-hmm.
Story of my life. Special. Anyhow, we made it be we made it known that we were different, and we were SEALs, and there was kind of an aura. I think everybody was kind of scared of us on one level. They're like, those dudes are SEALs, you know. And not that we were in that much tough. I mean, we were tougher in the sense of we were physically in incredible shape, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But anyhow, so one time we were all giving the black hat so much crap. And I was in a tower. I was in that big tower that
Mm-hmm.
you hurt your foot on.
Yep.
We were way up there. I mean, in that harness. And I remember just popping right off to the black hat. He was trying to be cool. I'm like I laughed at him or something. And he's like, Watkins, you may think you're a tough SEAL and all this, but you're in that harness. I'll get a hold of you and wear you out. I was like, bring it on. I was like, bring it on. I like physically challenged him. And he was just like, I don't want to look stupid if what looks worse, so there's this. Yeah.
Do you think your third phase combatives was enough to get was going to be enough to get you through that fight with Sergeant Airborne, the elite Sergeant Airborne?
The elite
Do you think
Sergeant
you would have
Airborne.
pulled it off?
Oh yeah. Just taking a look at him, it would have just been sheer stamina. I mean, he would have had a heart attack. He wasn't even in that great of shape. I mean, he had a little pooch. I actually felt sorry for him. And after that, years later, I feel really bad for being
Of
such an
course.
asshole.
Yeah.
I look back, I'm like, oh, that was so
I think I mentioned it before, but was it here where I talked about my warrior leader course, basic leader course? I can't remember if we talked about it on this thing, but when I was talking about the behavior of of the Ranger NCOs
yeah.
at an Army non-commissioned officer school, like a basic school that you have to go to when you pin your E5, it's it's like an overreaction to what the guys perceive as like stupidity or something that's not worth their time, and it's like people go crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't. And when I was in airborne school, I saw it too. I don't remember seeing any seals
Yeah.
at, but I think we did have some like cool guy Marines that
Yeah.
were in my class or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
and kind of the same sort of. There's something about like going through that training and then going to airborne school and then losing your mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it.
Right.
Well, I'll just wrap up my airborne experience by the last thing. Well, what happened, what it culminated this way. We were giving the instructor so much crap, all of us. It's kind of like a badge of honor. We got called, we got called on the carpet, all of us, by a captain. That's an 06 in the Navy. So that's a colonel in the Army. Now, that's pretty high rank. He was like the Navy liaison officer for the base. Like
Okay.
any problem, he was the big Navy guy there on Benning.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a liaison of some
The
sort.
chaperone, if
Yeah,
you will.
yeah. And he called us in his office, and he was just like, he was really a nice guy. And we were there, with all our swagger, like, what's up? And he's like, listen, guys. And he wasn't a SEAL. He was a line officer, just like a Navy commander or something
Mm-hmm.
on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, guys, okay, we know you're badasses. He kind of like pumped our ego a little bit. He goes, you guys are awesome. We've got countless thousands of dollars invested in you guys. You're going back to your SEAL teams real soon. Can you just, for me and for the honor of the Navy, can you just please tone it down a little bit? Because they're really mad at you guys. And he was so nice. I couldn't believe it. We walked in and it was like, man, can this guy kick us out of jump school or something? Or maybe he could. I mean, you never know. I mean, officers can
Mm-hmm.
do a lot. And so
Right.
it was like, maybe we pushed it too far this time. But he was really nice and cordial. And he just said, would you do it for me? Would you do it for the Navy? And we were like, oh, we kind of looked at our shoes. We're like, yeah, sure. We're sorry. And we left and that was it. And we really did reset because we realized we were being really big assholes and there was no reason for it. But anyhow, so that was my last airborne. That was like in the last week of training. I think we were doing our jumps or getting ready to. So, and my dad was there, like Patrick mentioned, his dad being it. They allow you to come and sit in the bleachers and family members or close friends or girlfriends or whatever, and watch you jump. And that was a great day. Just felt so great. I do remember the last thing I'll mention about jump school. I remember the first time out of that plane because it's like, oh, I can't wait to jump. I can't wait to jump. And then those engines fire up and you're sitting there with this parachute on. You're like, whoa, daddy, I'm jumping out of this thing. And as cool as I thought it would be, when you hear that thing and you feel that thing taxi and start taking off, you're like, wow, this is taking on some gravitas right
Yeah.
now. And then they open the door and
Yeah, that's a big
the
moment. Yeah.
wind starts blowing in and you're like, here we go. I hope that baby's packed right.
There's something about that moment when the doors open up where you're just
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Whoa, it's like serious. As much as I wanted to jump, as much as I couldn't wait to jump, it was like, and then I was I was, was it a chalk or a stick or,
I think it's stick. Like
yes, stick.
your line of jumpers,
Yeah.
I think it's a stick.
Yeah. And so you're flying on these big, huge planes. Like we were jumping out of the old C-141s. These are
Oh,
jets
wow.
going out of the door, getting blown by a jet engine into oblivion. But I mean, it works, but there's a lot of people on those planes. But
Mhm.
I was like the second person in my stick. So I seen right out of the door. I could
Mhm.
see the trees below me. And all I remember is thinking, we are not high enough. We're too low. It looked like we were only 300 feet off the ground. And I'm thinking, I could see people walking around. I mean, I could see trees and cars. I'm like, we've got to go up. Tell the pilot to take us way higher. But of course, they have it all dialed in. You're jumping out at about what, 1,000, 1,200?
Yeah, I maybe something like that. That sounds about right. I feel
Yeah,
like
it's pretty low.
I feel like it's pretty standard whatever the answer is. Maybe it's like
Yeah.
1,200, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So you got about enough time to check your line stretch, make
Yeah.
sure you got a good canopy, and if you don't, cut away and pull your reserve. Actually, you didn't even cut away those things, did you? You just pulled your reserve.
Yeah, you just pulled it.
MC-1-1 Bravo.
Yeah, you just pull you just pull the reserve at that point.
Yeah. See, when you get into what's called free falling, you have a whole different parachute system. It's a square. Because I'm just helping people out there that haven't had parachute. And then if you have a malfunction, you've got to cut it away because
Well,
you don't want to deploy. Yeah,
so you did the basic airborne course, which is
yeah,
static line jumping, which is
right,
you hook up and like World War II style, like you're going over Normandy, you go out the door, and then the parachute automatically opens. That's what I did. That's all I
yeah,
ever did.
yeah, yeah.
Now you did free fall in the teams, correct? At
Right.
that time, this is where I'm out of my depth because I don't know, but there was a time where not everyone in the SEAL teams were free fall qualified, right?
That's
At
right.
your time, how did that work at your time?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Now everybody's free fall, and now things are so much more organized and streamlined and professional in some ways. Not that we weren't professional, but it's like it's so down to the nuggets on
Mhm.
like going to these schools. So back in the day, and it was just like sniper was the same way for SEALs. So it was a good deal school. And a good deal school, for those listening may not know this, is I don't know, you performed well, you got some time off, a billet opened at one of these schools that everybody wanted to go to, and there's a number of them that everybody wants to go to. And they say, hey, we got an opening. Anybody in the platoon want to go to free fall? And every hand goes up if you're not free fall qualified. And they say, well, we got two. So you and you go or whatever. Usually it
Mhm.
was a senior thing. The more senior you were, the more likely you were to go if you didn't have it.
Mhm.
For me, and free fall school for us back then, this is how long this is, because long ago this was, because we did not have a designated free fall school like they do now. It's a whole school.
Right.
We were trained in-house by the free fall guys, but the guys we called air gods. And they worked in the airloft. They were parachute riggers. They were jump masters. Everybody kind of fit into their own little specialty in the SEALs. And that's what
Mhm.
I ended up being. I was a jump master. So I could train and conduct an airborne launch and communicate with the landing zone, all that. I mean, I gave many a jump brief. I was also a parachute rigger. I could pack parachutes. I could teach guys how to pack parachutes. So I kind of naturally was set up to go early on to free fall, but it was right there at SEAL Team 5, and it was it was just guys that knew a lot telling us how to do it, which is what you do in a school anyway.
Your A school was the parachute rigging course. Did
It
you
was
at your A school, did you learn to pack the parachute you jumped at airborne school?
not at all.
Mm.
We learned to pack these really high speed ejection seat
Uh-huh.
parachutes for fighter aircraft, for aircraft carriers. So that's a unit. It's a whole big system. I mean, it's a whole seat.
Sure.
It's got survival gear. It's got and it's those things are really hard to pack. I mean,
But a
yeah,
paratrooper's kit was not a part
n-
of interesting.
no, but those are so easy to pack after you've packed an like ejection seat chute.
Mhm.
You just watch once or twice and you go, this is easy. They're easy to pack. And so yeah, and if in fact, like when I got to Team 5 and I got in my platoon, um, my first platoon, they just anytime we had a half day or we weren't training that day, we were training all the time, and we'll get into some of that too. They just said, hey, Watkins, you're free, man. Just go to the airloft and pack. And I would just hang around the airloft and ask all the sky gods. And a couple of these guys were on the Leapfrogs, which is the Navy SEAL parachute team, analogous to the Golden Knights in the Army, which is the elite parachute team for the Army. And the Golden Knights, right?
The Golden yeah, well, there's so many parachute
Yeah,
teams
yeah,
now. You've got the Golden Knights is like the official United States Army all Army
right.
team. Then you have for USASOC, United States Army Special Operations Command, they have the Black Daggers, I believe they're
Okay.
called. And then Airborne School, I think, has their own, and I can't
Jump
remember what
team.
they're called, their own jump team. But how did that work? Man, we're getting a little ahead, but if I don't ask it now, I'll forget. But
No, not
how did the free fall work in terms of a capability for your platoon?
it
So,
didn't.
you know, and it didn't exist. It was just for fun. So the
Yeah,
Green Berets, I know enough about them to know that a company has got you got the dive team, and everyone on there's got to be dive qualified because that's the
right,
capability
right,
they need to be able to use when
right.
they're deploying. at the free fall mountain. So in a platoon, in a SEAL platoon where like, only 60% of you had free fall,
Yeah,
what did that mean if you all wanted to use that capability on a target?
it didn't. And we never, that's another thing I'd like to interject here. All this talk about halo and hey-ho, which is halo is high altitude, low opening. You jump out high, you fall with oxygen way down, and then you open. So you get in, you infiltrate, you evade radar and stuff like that. Hey-ho is where you open real high altitude, high opening, and you fly these things. These things fly like 15 miles an hour. I don't know what we were using, old dinosaur rigs back then, the MT1X. But they're square parachutes and you can steer them and they zoom around. It's pretty cool actually. So, but honestly, in all of the history since Vietnam, the number of hey-ho and hey-low operations we've done are very few. I mean, SEAL Team 6 did one in Somalia. I'm sure Delta has done them. They're just very, oh my gosh, they're hard, and they take a high skill set, and everybody's got to be qualified on a pretty high level. Oh, they did it with the Somali pirates when they shot the pirates, when they had taken Captain Phillips hostage, the Somali pirates. I think they haloed in or something like that, but it's just very rare for a regular SEAL team to do. I mean, maybe they have, I don't know, they probably have, I guess, but I mean, now, and then there's another difference. Now everybody is qualified.
But
So
now it's a realistic capability that
yeah,
you could potentially employ today to have
I
a whole
remember.
platoon halo in somewhere, halo somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a good deal school, and it's cool
Mhm.
to. Now I'm free fall. Who yeah, everybody thinks that's cool, and it is cool. It's fun. I mean, I think it's fun. Maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but we the only thing that ever came out of it for me was they were having problems. I don't know. One of these parachute systems, I think it was the MT1X, which is an early generation big combat square free fall rig. That's the way to say it. And there something, the slider was locking up on it. So a slider is this thing that goes flying up and keeps the lines stretched properly on a square parachute. Round parachute's a whole different shooting match. So they were having problems with these things, and they asked for volunteers. And there's this naval test base in China Lake, California. It's up in the Mojave Desert, not terribly far from Palm Springs, if you know that area. And they said, "Hey, y'all want a good deal?" And a good deal was per diem, because you're making a lot more with per diem than you make. I mean, it's just extra money in your pocket, because you usually just get ramen noodles and tuna fish and go back to your room, and you could eat out with this money, but you save it because everybody's poor back in the
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
So I went to China Lake, and they said, "Okay, here's the deal. We are going to try to simulate some malfunctions on these things." And I was like, "Cool. Just make sure we got a lot of height so we cut that baby away if it does malfunction." And they dropped, we were jumping right below the oxygen level. It was over 10,000 feet, and seeing if they would malfunction. And they wanted to try to see if they could produce a malfunction so that they could problem solve why it was malfunctioning. And guess what? It did not a single one ever malfunction, which is fine with me.
Does the altitude, I mean, is there enough of a difference? We're so far off topic, but I
Yeah.
gotta ask these questions or I'll forget. But at the difference, well, no, I was gonna ask if the altitude played a difference in whether the malfunction could be induced, but I forgot. My brain only thinks in static lines, so I'm thinking 1,200 feet. I'm thinking the
Yeah,
difference
yeah.
between 1,200 feet and,
No,
and 10,000 feet. Like, so you're probably that's probably pretty consistent with
if I remember
the
correctly,
atmosphere.
that's a good question. We were, and it may have had something to do with it. I don't know, but they told us to pull around 4,500 feet is when we were supposed to pull to
Hmm.
deploy our parachute. And that's what we did. So I don't know if that was a magic number that they were having problems with. So they said pull at
Mm-hmm.
that altitude,
Right.
but they also wanted us to have enough time, if we did have a malfunction, to be able to clear it and cut away and pull
Right.
our reserve. Because that's yeah, you got to cut that baby away or you're in even more serious trouble with a square parachute.
So after I'll get us back on track here.
Okay.
So you graduate from airborne school, you get your wings, you don't pin it to your baseball cap that you then go out to eat like I did. You play it cool. Uh, Sort of
Well,
broadly speaking, were there any other like official schools courses that you needed to go to either before checking in or right after checking in? Was there anything official that wasn't sort of along, following that good deal sort
yeah.
of paradigm?
No, no, nothing required. It was
Mhm,
get report to the team, and then as fast as you can get assigned a platoon.
mhm,
Because once you got in a platoon, and see, this is okay. So nowadays they have SQT. It used to be called STT, SEAL Tactical Training. SQT is like part two of BUDS, basically. And it's a school all its own, a TRADOC type of school, like you're talking about. And then after that, it's TRP, I think, SEAL Troop Training. And I don't even know what they do there. This is so long ago when I was through that we
mhm,
did it all on the platoon level, but we did have schools we went to. We went to desert warfare training. We went to Arctic warfare training in Kodiak, Alaska. I think the East Coast guys go to Norway to do it, somewhere where it's freezing cold.
mhm.
We did mountain warfare. We did jungle warfare in Panama.
And were these individual was this when you were in your platoon? So was
Yeah,
this like a platoon, like,
yeah,
environmental acclimation type train up
that's right.
thing? Okay.
Yeah, we did it as a platoon and we did it in what's called a workup. So a workup is about a year to a year and a half, depending, where you go to all these school combat swimmer course. Now that's advanced combat. I mean, we already knew how to do all of the basics, but we went up to Bangor, Washington. That's when I was talking in that one episode where I nearly died on a Dregger closed circuit
Mhm.
scuba rig. Got stuck under an aircraft carrier. Anyway, um, doing a lot of just way more advanced and way more specialized stuff. So God help you if you have to fight in the Arctic. Let me tell you.
And would that be tailored towards I can't imagine that in a workup you do jungle and Arctic and desert. So is that tailored towards where you were going to be? No, or was it just kinda,
We
"Hey,
did
this
them all.
time you did them all?"
We did them all in one workup. Yeah. And so
Wow.
we were, that's the thing too, man. We were constantly on the road.
Mhm.
We were Alaska, okay, back, Helena, Montana for mountain, back to the base, Bangor, Washington for combat swimmer, back to the base, on and on and on.
That's insane.
It's
I can't
insane
believe it.
amount of, it's really an insane amount of training, and it's not easy training. And then we would go out to the desert to Nyland, California. Now that's an interesting story. See, we're just going to be telling stories. But this is great stuff. It's called Camp Billy Machin now. It used to be called Camp Kerry, Kerrey, after Senator Bob Kerrey from Nebraska, who was a Congressional Medal of Honor SEAL in Vietnam. It used to be called Camp Kerry, but they renamed it Camp Billy Machin. So we were all going, what's the deal? He won the Congressional Medal of Honor. Well, Senator Kerry uh, became a Democrat. And he was just he became liberal. I mean, he just shifted his ways, and he became an outspoken pacifist. He talked about the horrors that happened in Vietnam, and a lot of that I agree with him on. Nowadays, this far away, not I'm not saying everything, but so they took the name of the camp from him because he was left leaning eventually. So in
Mm,
that's an interesting story. But we went out there to do all kinds of fire and movement. And then sniper school was another in-house course. It was
mhm,
the best shots and snipers in the team. Now they had gone on to other sniper schools like SODIC, which is an Army Special Forces sniper school. So SODIC
mhm.
is Special Operations Target Interdiction Course. If you didn't know what that, which you probably didn't, the Army and their acronyms or whatever. But anyhow, I went to that one, but yeah, it was. But you're basically training, and but also they would cut guys away to go to schools even during a platoon workup. So one of those examples was myself because I was an air guy. So
Hmm.
one of my subspecialties was air, parachutes, fast ropes, rappelling, anything that had to do with aircraft or I don't know, going up or down,
Right.
you know. And so they sent me to spy rig school. Did you ever do spy rig?
Never did
Ha,
it.
that's a fun one. That's another cool ride. It's like I'm Marine for life on amusement parks because I was like, I mean, not spy rig is a big rope that attaches to a helicopter, and guys have a harness, and you clip in, and it's designed. It was designed in Vietnam to pull basically like a squad out of triple canopy jungle. Like, how are you going to get out there? You're not going to land a helicopter in there.
Right.
So you put a penetrator on the bottom of it, and it just peels down through all the trees into the jungle, and guys can just hook up and cover your face as you go out through that triple canopy and pull them out with a helicopter. So I went to they sent me to Fort Pendleton, Camp Pendleton, a Marine base, and it was I can't remember his name. It was a gunnery sergeant, Marine Force Recon guy who taught me how. He was the official instructor for the spy rig, so I learned how to do that. All kinds of cool stuff, and that was just like a week or two. Didn't take
Hmm.
that long, and then I was back with my platoon, and so it was like constant training.
That's interesting. And you were comparing, I mean, so, a lot of that was platoon train up, work up. And in
Hmm.
terms of individual skills, your free fall, your sniper, all that type of stuff. At your time, that was kind of as available, send folks probably based on seniority, which is pretty common. You're not going to give the new guy free fall if you can help it, you know?
uh yeah, not free fall for sure, but it did depend on what you're like. Everybody had a job in the platoon, not
Hmm.
just to be an operator. Okay, so yeah, you got different jobs as a squad member:
Hmm.
point man, radio man, M60 gunner, on and on. Well, that's just your job in a patrol.
Hmm.
But then you had an outboard motor guy who he goes to outboard motor school to learn how to. They tear down and rebuild an entire outboard motor so that you know every nook and cranny of that outboard motor, so
Hmm.
that when you hit the ocean in the middle of the night with the engines out of a rubber duck, we called it, it's big G12 cargo chutes, the thing doesn't start. That guy has every tool. He can practically rebuild the thing. It's like a mechanic
Hmm.
level. It, your dive guy, he knows everything about scuba, semi-closed circuit scuba, closed circuit scuba. He goes to all the high-speed scuba schools. That stuff never interested me that much. I'm like, give me the rig and I'll. The air stuff I thought was really the coolest
Right.
because it had to do with jumping. And then your corpsman, he goes to 18 Delta, which is a special forces medic course, probably the top in the world, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, those guys come out. We used to always say, geez, that's better than a doctor. I mean, what they knew, I mean, and I think they could prescribe some meds on some level. I don't know how much and what,
Mhm.
but they were really good. It would be about like being a physician's assistant level knowledge.
Mhm.
But anyhow, yeah, so there was
Well,
just all these different schools. But
so
but you had but what I was just going to say is, sorry,
yeah.
if you had a guy who was a brand new guy and he was designated as an outboard motor guy, he's going to go to that outboard motor school. He's got to.
Mhm.
So it
Right.
wasn't a matter of seniority there. But if it was free fall, sniper, there were the cool schools that everybody was slobbering for.
That
So
sounds about right because and we're wrapping up here, but I feel like I've heard as part of the SEAL workup, it's making sure you for the outboard motor guy, that's a qualification you have to have before you deploy. So a from a bureaucratic perspective, if you can believe it, like these units, like they have certain things, check boxes they have to have marked off before they can go overseas for whatever
right.
they're going to do. And so, it was important in a workup for them to be like, okay, I got my outboard motor guy, I got my backup outboard motor guy,
Yep.
and playing sort of moving the pieces around to make sure you had all that was important. Um,
Exactly.
so, okay, that's good. In some ways, simple compared to not simple in a bad way, but back in those days, very different from as you were describing it. What
Yeah.
SQT seems to be today, which
Yeah.
is like a bunch of schools lined up, sort of individual training, and
Yeah.
in some ways that's good. In some ways, maybe they're missing out on what it was like when it was your back in your day.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about and the idea of a workup, a train up, a training cycle is what we used to call it. Sort of
Right.
similar, slightly different. So we'll get into that
Yeah.
from the ranger perspective. Um,
Great.
any closing words on that process?
No, no. Only that I hope my memory hasn't failed me altogether. It's just
But if it did, you'll clarify because that's
I will
what's
clarify it in
you
the
will
next
clarify.
episode. Yes.
So
Oh, that's good.
okay, so that gets us all here. We'll pick back up next time. Thanks for listening. Catch you later.
See you.